Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. My name is Erin and today is Book Review Friday. I know I haven't had one in 2 weeks, I think. That was 2 weeks? I think it's been 2 weeks since I've had a book review. As you know, I got sick, blah 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 blah. Haven't had time to read a book, but I have a really good one for you guys today I'm very excited to talk about, and that is Camp Slasher by Dan Padavona. I think I'm saying his name right. Honestly, not sure. Dan Padavona, I think. I'm sorry if that's not correct, but this is Camp Slasher, like I said, and I actually found this book on Amazon. I was browsing through some horror books that I wanted to buy, and this came up on my recommended, and I was kind of like, ooh, Slasher's Camp? Is this going to be like a good slasher book? So I looked it up, and sure enough, it is a slasher horror, which if you don't know, that's my favorite. I love a good slasher. That's probably my favorite subgenre of horror. I don't know why, there's just something about it. I grew up watching slasher movies, and that's just my horror preference, I guess. So let's start with the cover. I think it looks really, really cool. I like the oranges and the blacks. Reminds me of Halloween, obviously, but I don't know. A lot of horror books like this kind of Halloween-y color scheme. I don't know if it's because it just screams scary, but I see a lot all the time. On top of the book right here, it says, if you go into the woods today, you're in for a big surprise. I just love when books have little like blurbs at the top or like on the cover. I just think it's so funny. I like the hand holding the machete right here, which is a good indication of what is to come in the book. And on the back, it doesn't really give a big description. It just says a slasher horror in the vein of Friday the 13th and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I have to agree, this is very Friday the 13th meets Texas Chainsaw, which we'll get into later. But yeah, it's a very, very simple plot on the back, so I'm just going to summarize the book for you myself instead of reading it so we can go a little bit more in depth. So Camp Black Bear has been abandoned for years, and Kirby Watkins thinks he can turn Camp Black Bear into a magical camp where all kinds of kids from all over want to come and participate in. He ends up hiring a bunch of college students to come and really try to help whip the camp into shape and just sort of restore it to a nicer looking camp, and he kind of hopes that these college students will become camp counselors for the camp when it finally opens. So let's talk a little bit about the characters. So the first counselor, or the first college student we have, his name is A-Train or Anthony. I don't really know why they call him A-Train. It never really says. He is your typical chauvinistic pig male character. He's very rude. He thinks he's better than everyone. He's a very manly man. He just thinks he's really cool and great and awesome, and he's really annoying, if you can't tell. Next you have Bree, who is A-Train's little fling for this period of time. You don't really know too much about her, honestly. She's just kind of there, and she's just obsessed with A-Train and pretty much can't keep her hands off of him. Next we have Sarah, who is seemingly the only normal character in this book. She's pretty much the main character. You can tell she has that sweet, nice, innocent vibe that a lot of slasher horror give to that one character. So that's her. She also just found out that she's pregnant. Next we have Preston. I'm not going to say too much about Preston just because there's a lot about him. All you need to know about Preston is that he's a very strange boy who has a big crush on Sarah, and he's basically a psychopath in the making. Last but not least is Caleb. He is the last one in the group, and he is the last one to show up, and he is the misunderstood character. He has a criminal background, but he is more than meets the eye. The group soon realizes that they are in for a lot of work. This camp is in very, 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 very bad shape, and they don't think they're going to be able to do anything to really help this camp. There's just them. I mean, it needs a lot more than just these college students to help get this camp running. So a subplot in the actual plot is the tension in the sheriff's office. The current sheriff, his name is Bracken, he's having some current issues with his deputy Craven. Craven basically wants to take his job and he wants to become sheriff, but he's a dirty deputy. He's not good. He doesn't want to be sheriff for the right reasons. He just wants to be sheriff for power, basically. Of course, the least of everyone's problems are a rundown camp and a sheriff-deputy rivalry. There is someone in the woods watching and waiting, and he is going to kill anyone that gets in his way. Okay, that's it for the synopsis. There's a lot more that happens, obviously, but we're not going to delve too much deeper. I'm just trying to give you guys a little small rundown, a little piece of the cake, so you can check it out for yourself if you want to. This book is fantastic. I loved every single second of this book. It hit me right in that good spot where I was needing a slasher horror book to just get me, you know? I don't know if that makes sense, but this book is really, really good. Like the back of the book says, this is very reminiscent of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Friday the 13th. I'm sure you guys are getting the aspects of Friday the 13th. There's a camp, a madman, a machete. I mean, it sounds very Friday the 13th. However, there is a twist that makes it very Texas Chainsaw, in my opinion. I could have done with a little bit more Texas Chainsaw in there because I do love a good Texas Chainsaw moment, but it was just enough to make it different than Friday the 13th, and I really liked that. So I liked the combination of the two classic slashers meeting into one book that makes it unique. I will say this book is pretty gruesome and detailed. It explains some of the violent deaths and, you know, it goes into a lot of detail. So if you are squeamish and you don't really like detailed gore horror like that, I probably wouldn't read this. I personally like when it's detailed. I like to be a little grossed out. Too much is a lot, but that right amount, I like that, and I think this had the right amount of gore and not gore. I just think everything about this book screams that classic slasher horror style, and I really enjoy that. I am such a fan of slasher horror. I grew up watching it. It's my favorite genre, so when I read a book that really encaptures that classic slasher, I love it. I just love it. I think it's so good. It was extremely easy to read and get into. It's only 247 pages. So as soon as you start reading it, it throws you right into it and keeps going until the end, which I appreciate. I can't always do a slow burn. If it's done right, a slow burn is fine, but I much prefer a fast-paced all the way through till the very end. The ending is a very typical slasher horror ending. It wasn't anything unique, it wasn't anything different, it wasn't anything shocking, but it fits the genre very nicely. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. It's just a typical slasher ending. It's very straightforward, very obvious, but it fits perfectly. It actually really kept me on the edge of my seat. I was very, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen next? Oh, wait, what about this? So I did love that. If a book can keep me on the edge of my seat, it's a good one in my book. That was a weird way to say it. I don't want to say this is anything special, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's nothing different, but it's slasher done right, which I appreciate so much. And I think if you are a true slasher horror lover and you don't mind that typical slasher, which I feel like if you love slasher horror, you're used to the same typical storyline, same plot, same ending, but you don't really care because it's just the atmosphere, it's just the idea of a slasher horror that gets you going. And I think this book does that very well. So again, not anything different or out of the ordinary, but still so well done for the slasher genre. I loved it so much. It was so good. It just is a perfect slasher horror book. It gave me what I wanted, and that was it. It didn't try to surprise me. It didn't try to trick me. It's just a good slasher horror book. That's all I can say. It's just a good slasher. Yeah, guys, so that's all I have to say about Camp Slasher. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was so good. Such a good addition to the slasher subgenre. I loved it so much. It was really good, and I don't know, it made me excited to read more slasher horror, which I'm always looking for good slasher books. So if you have any recommendations, please leave them in the comments down below because they are my favorite. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. It lets me know what content you are enjoying on my channel. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. We can become friends and talk about horror and makeup and everything else that we want to talk about. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!